All right, so it is time to build that list, right? We are going to make it because as much as we have learned all of the cheat code, now we're putting the work into action, mainly because without a list, you can't apply. So the whole entire program is called College Apps 12 Steps to Declaring Your Match. And so we actually need the first step, which is just let's build that list, figure out what it is and what you don't want in this process. And so, before we even talk about the list and options within the list, I do want to ask you all to do something for me. I think, unless you have some sort of agreement with the school that you're attending right now that says you are 100% guaranteed to go to a particular college or university, I would like you all to commit to applying to at least 8 to 12 schools. Now, I know that might sound like a lot. I know it might sound like way more than you were expecting. I only applied to one school because I just didn't know. But knowing how competitive schools are and knowing the work that I've been doing over the last decade and understanding schools and the ins and outs of college access, you do need to make sure that you have at least a couple of options come May 1st. Do you remember what May 1st is? May 1st is National Decision Day. That is a day that you have to commit. You have to declare to the world where it is that you're going to go for the next few years of your life to obtain this degree that you really, really want. And so if we were to do 8 to 12 schools, right? And obviously, I advise you decide, right? So this is just best practice. Best practice says 8 to 12. But I know that that might feel overwhelming. I know that you might feel like I already know where I want to go. Just hear me out. All right. So with the 8 to 12 schools, you still need it to be balanced. And so I came up with my own criteria of what it means to have a balanced list because we want to make sure that you have options that you feel really good about and you have options that you're actually testing and risk taking on, right? And so the first level is schools that you feel comfortable applying to. So you should have at least 2 or more schools you feel really, really good about. So these are schools that you actually exceed what they're looking for. If they say on their website that their average GPA for incoming students is a 3.2 and you have a 3.6, you're like, nailed it, right? Or if they have a particular test score, you know you are above and beyond that. So these are schools that you feel really good about. You feel like, I know nothing is guaranteed, which is why I don't use the word safe. Nothing is safe because of the way that college admissions works, but you feel really comfortable. When I'm comfortable, let me tell you what I do. I take my shoes off, I put my feet on the couch. My mom's not with me anymore. I live on my own. And so guess what? Feet on the couch it is, right? And so these are things that I'm just so comfy. When I'm driving and I'm comfortable, right? Like sometimes I might use my knee, sometimes I might use one hand if I know the area, right? I might be able to multitask a little bit. So these are things you do when you're comfortable. You kind of relax, you chill. You're like, yeah, I know it's not guaranteed that this will always work out, right? And maybe I shouldn't always turn up the radio just because I know the area or don't have to look at the GPS because I'm familiar with this particular place. But you know what? I feel comfortable doing so. So I want you to feel and have a couple of schools on your list that you feel super comfortable applying to. Now, let me make sure that I'm not overlooking a couple of other things too. So when I say comfortable, I do mean academically, but I also mean financially. We know financial fit is really, really important. And we're going to go over financial aid in a couple of lessons. But I do want you to know that if you don't get the scholarship, if financial aid isn't the best package, you know that you feel comfortable attending this school. You know what the loan situation might be like, you know what the payment plan or just the overall cost is. And so finding somewhere that's financially fit also will help in your options come May 1st. So much is going to happen to you between now and May 1st. You might change your mind on what you want to study. You might change your mind on where you want to go. I've been in this for a long time. So I know people choose schools based off of people that they love right now. And then all of a sudden they break up and they're like, I don't want to go to that school anymore. So much can happen. You might decide you want to go to a school with all of your friends and then y'all change your mind. And so again, I really want to look out for you because I know that these are things that go through people's heads. I was also a high school student at one point. So don't think that I don't know what happens. And then I've just been around y'all for a very long time. And nothing new is under the sun. Y'all are all doing the same thing that me and my friends did when I was in high school. And then lastly, not only financially, I want you to include schools on this list that are geographically really close to you. Something or someone might need you to be close to you during your first year of college, or financially might not pan out. And so you might need to commute. Again, because life is unpredictable, we still want to be ahead of the game and have a plan. If your parent loses their job or can no longer pay what they thought, I want to make sure that you have an option that you love, not an option that you have to scramble and figure out come April, but an option that you love that says, okay, I know that my situation has changed. I know I need to live close to home to help out with the family, or I know I just cannot afford to live on campus. What is a school that I would be proud to go to? Because now you're in control. Now is the time that you get to do that. So when I say comfortable, I do mean academically, but I also mean geographically, and I also mean financially. So come up with 2 or more schools on your list. Maybe the school you want to go to is already that school, right? And maybe it's a state school. It's close to where you live. State schools are obviously a little bit cheaper, although it doesn't mean that the out of pocket expense will be cheaper. We'll talk about that during financial aid, but usually the number is less than a private school. And you feel really, really good about you as a student being able to get it. So sometimes 1 or 2 schools on your list, which are your top choices, actually fall into schools you feel comfortable applying to. After that, you want the schools that you feel confident applying to, right? So these are ones that you're looking them in the eyes and they're looking you back and you're like, oh no, we can stare at each other because I literally match what you need. And so these are schools that, again, it doesn't have to be perfect. If they say that their average GPA for a student is a 3.2 GPA and you have a 3.13, you're in the ballpark, right? You're not so far off. And I'll have a chart at the end of this lesson to kind of help you understand where you might fall so you can kind of do a little bit of playing around with where you are on your own. But these are schools that you meet the requirements. Financially, it's a good fit. Academically, you meet the requirements to get in. And so I want you to have about 3 to 4, the bulk of your schools in this particular category. Again, for some of you, it might be different, especially if you're already looking at a state school. So maybe those comfortable schools end up becoming the ones that you really want to go to. And again, this is just guidance. I'm assuming that you have no list at all. I don't want to make that assumption. I don't want you to feel stressed out like you're behind. You're not. Everything you need, you're going to get right now. Okay? So these are the ones that you actually meet the requirements for these schools. Now, lastly, I want you to take time to find at least one school, right? I know you're like, I don't want to do these essays. I don't want to do all this extra work. Find one school that maybe in the back of your mind, you might be thinking, what if? What if I got into this school? We'll never know if you never try. And so I want you to think about those schools that you feel a little insecure about. Because let me tell you, the truth of the matter is there's a ton of schools out there that no matter what your GPA is, you can have a 4.0 GPA, you can have a perfect ACT score, you can have a perfect SAT score, you can have 5 AP courses with 5s on the AP exams, and you can still get denied. Because schools don't operate on perfection. They're operating on so many other components that you have no idea about. They're looking for fit. They're looking for whether or not you're going to be involved in their campus. They're looking at your major. They're looking at how can they serve you, right? So all of these things are really, really important. But I want you to know that risk taking in this time of applying to college, you don't lose anything. This is a good time to kind of flex that muscle. Think about when you go to the gym or if you have an instrument, right? And it's your first time. You gotta learn to tune that thing up. You gotta warm up. You gotta stretch if you're a dancer, right? All of these things are so important. And so in life, you're gonna have to take risk. Or you play it safe your whole entire life and miss out on all the adventures. So I'm super adventurous. Not sure how much you know me or how you found me, but I do all the things adventurous, right? I travel solo. I bungee jump, I skydive, I surf, I climb. Anything you can think of that someone says we should do, I'm like, yeah, I'm down. But that was a muscle I had to develop, right? I had to learn that risk taking is okay. As long as the risk doesn't harm me, or as long as the risk isn't dangerous. Yes, you might hear skydiving, you're like, girl, that's dangerous. Yes, it is. But also, if you look at the equipment and you understand it and you see the professionals, I'm not skydiving on my own, right? I'm hooked up to somebody else who does this for a living. And so, again, I think that when you can start building that muscle of risk taking even now, when there's nothing that can hurt you except for just trying. Okay, you don't get in, cool, but you tried. That's going to help you to try in the future when there's a competitive internship or there's a job that you don't quite qualify for, but you want to put your, like, you want to shoot your shot for that particular job. I want you to be ready and know what it feels like to do things uncomfortable. It's such a great lesson. It's such a great skill. And so you're going to try and do that. So these are the ones that either you might be right below. So I'm not talking about their average GPA is like a 3.8 and you have a 2.8, right? That's not in the ballpark. I'm talking about you have a 3.8 GPA average and you have like a 3.4, right? So you're close but not there. But maybe you meet and you match them in their test scores. Or as an extracurricular student, right? All the things that you've done, activities, you're like, yeah, like, put me on paper, holistically, I look good. Just one of these components, I don't really meet what they're looking for. And then again, these are also schools that no matter what, MIT, Yale, Harvard, Stanford, Tufts, Vanderbilt, they're always going to be difficult. So again, the quote unquote perfect student with all the perfect test scores also doesn't have a guarantee of getting in. So when I talk about feeling concerned, I'm talking about because you can't really be sure if you're going to match what they're looking for just because of the way the school is, their reputation, those sorts of things. But I also want you to know there is schools that are financial reach should also go in this category. So let's say there's a school that you're confident about applying to because of test scores and your GPA, but the cost of the school is really high. Like, you need this really competitive scholarship in order to even consider it. So anytime anyone asks you about the school, you say, yeah, I really like this particular school, but if I don't get the scholarship, I can't go. Let's move that school down to the schools I feel concerned about applying to because it is dependent on something like money. So any school that is really competitive, you're in the ballpark, but not quite there, you're a little bit below, and you need financial aid and you need it in order to go, those are the ones you're going to put on your concern list. So mix and match those three, and you should have between 8 and 12. All right. Again, I advise you decide, your situation better than me. You know all the components. So if you end up doing 6 and you feel really good about it, then 6 it is. Right? But I just want to tell you what the best practice is between 8 and 12. So that is the balance list. So